Good evening, this is Eva. Tonight I'm going to be talking about several Bible characters, and I'm going to be looking at whether they have any type of possible mental health disorder that goes by the DSM-5. The main things I'm going to be looking for are narcissism, which there's several types, and I'll talk about them. Sociopaths, which is closely related to psychopaths, so we'll do that too. And then maybe possibly a dark empath, but I'm not sure if we're going to go in that direction. So that's what, and it goes without saying, like I've done, for example, I've done King Saul several times, and he definitely falls in this category. So we'll talk about him. And then I'll sort of go over like what traits do they have that are implicit in scripture or in data that Bible scholars have turned up that are relevant to, our pretend diagnosis, right? So, and in what ways, like, were these characters, was there a period in some of the decisions that they made where they could have taken a different direction, or are they just completely controlled by their mental health? So the first character I'm going to look at is, well, his name's hard to say. It's Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, right? Yeah. Okay, so he was a very I wouldn't say popular, infamous king in the Bible, and he had an enormous land and all different kinds of people, all different cultures, nationalities lived throughout there. There were Jewish people, there were Syrians, Babylon. I don't know if there were Sumerians or not, but it's like basically he was in the area that was kind of like what's known today really as Iraq. So he was a very a sort of grandiose leader. He was very power oriented, very aggressive, very much in charge and control of the war machine, which was his armies, and he would delegate them, and he was extremely successful. But how the story goes is that, he was, just going through, just being his usual tyrant type personality, and he had sort of a weird relationship with God, where it's like he had to acknowledge him, I guess, because of the Judeo-Christian population, and because he was on the throne, which is usually something that God had part of in the Old Testament. However, he didn't really, he had no fear of God. Like, he just, and there's like a part of the story where it's like God gives him this like sort of mini trial and see if he'll change his ways. But he's so ingrained in being the best or being on top. Like, he has very big, like, his power and control. Like, really, the only time that he gives it up is he does sort of have that kind of thing that narcissists have, where they really like other people's approval. They like to be, have their ego stroked, etc. So he would be very like his like panel of you know, council of people he thought were the elders or whatever had the best knowledge. He would often go with some of their ideas, but it was more kind of in like, he wanted to be liked very much. It was very important to him how he looked to the public, which is exactly how King Saul was. And we saw that with comparing him to King David, complete opposites. David was just loved by everybody, and David had an extraordinary relationship with God, and he was very favored. You know, I'm talking about the first half. Oh my god, sorry. It's really late. He was really, I'm talking about the first half of King David's reign. All right, so back to the story. Nebuchadnezzar, he decides that he wants a certain part of a nearby kingdom. I want to say it's the Philistines, but I might have that wrong. Certain group of people that he wants to get rid of, and he's very much into false idols. Not like King Ahab and Jezebel, nothing like that. But he's definitely, like I said, he's not really sold on just one God principle. So he makes a sort of announcement that if people were not going to bow down to this effigy, this I want to say it was like some sort of, it wasn't a golden calf, it was some kind of god made out of some kind of metals. If people would not worship this, what he deemed a god, that they would be, oh my gosh, put to death. So, unfortunately, that means Daniel, who was a young man who came with, I want to say, 2 of his friends from a totally different area, and his friends are completely, like, they're, I don't think they're Jewish, but maybe they are, but they're completely devout to the one God, and they refuse, of course, and they say they're willing to, you know, either die for their God or be tested, and that their God will save them. That's what they say. And Daniel, they're all given like new names when they enter the kingdom, even though they're doing work for the kingdom, because their names are, you know, considered, I guess, Christian or of Jewish origin, and the king wants them to have names that reflect, you know, his God and the people who he has surrounding him, who sort of are his, you know, the popular crowd. So they have to get new names, and some of the names are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Abednego? I think that's the one that Daniel has to be, or anyway. So the king, being his obnoxious self, orders that the stove be heated 7 times what it normally is. And so these soldiers who go up to it to, I guess, open the door after it's been heated this hot, they're just incinerated by opening the door, or killed, or I don't know. It's just kind of like, okay. So maybe 7 times is a little extreme. So he has them, I guess they're just thrown in the oven, and instead of being instantly killed like the guards, at some point they can look through the window of the oven or furnace or whatever it is, and he can see 4 figures dancing around. And he only put 3 men in there, Daniel and his 2 friends. So it should only be 3. So it's speculated that the 4th one was Christ's incarnation before his coming, to earth. So, but they're not chained anymore, which they went in there with chains. So the king is so freaked out. He has them get them out. And then they're actually not even they don't even smell like smoke. They're completely normal. And so the king has to break down and be like, okay, obviously your God is the real thing. And, I'm going to have to go, but he's going to have to go with changing his mind about who he wants to worship. So in that way, they really taught him a new direction. However, he's very sort of not a flexible person. He's a difficult person, but he has a terrible temper too. But he ends up having a dream, and in the dream there's this massive tree, and it is amazingly gorgeous, and it goes almost up to heaven and has deep roots. And then in the dream, an axe or something just comes in. I don't think that there's a person attached to it. I mean, this is a dream after all, and chops the tree at the base, and it falls down. And so he is freaked out by this dream. He wants to know what it means. So he gets his council together and he asks them all to interpret the dream. He has a dream interpreter on staff, I guess. And absolutely nobody has any idea what to tell him about this dream. But it's really bothering him, and he feels like there's some kind of message. He knows that the Christian God often gives messages in his dream, and not in his personal dreams, but in dreams in general. So that's one of the main ways that God connects to his people and gives them messages. So he asks and tries to see if there's anybody in the whole court area that could, pick up what his own counsel couldn't. And one of them recommends Daniel. And they say, well, we know that this, young man does have the ability to interpret dreams. So he has Daniel come up and he asks him to, pray to his God about the dream and see if he can get any answers. So after he tells Daniel the dream in detail, and he prays, and he gets he's overcome with emotion, and he's seen something, he saw something prophetic in the dream, but he doesn't want to tell the king what it is. And of course the king is now well, what is it? What are you, why are you acting so strange? What did you see in the dream? And so finally Daniel has to tell him, and he knows that he has to be honest because of course he's, one of God's favorites. So he's an honest person. So he tells him, but basically the tree represents him, the king, and that all that's around the tree, the plants and the everything around it that's so attractive and everything, those are the other kingdoms. And then he says that he's to be cut down from being ruler of all the lands, right? Somebody's going to come and take his kingdom over, and his dynasty is going to fall. And there's this other weird part of the dream where there's like some message that has to be interpreted, and it's a really strange message. Like, I'm not going to go over the whole thing because it's kind of long, but when Daniel interprets it, he says, okay, well, you want to know this, he's reluctant to tell him the whole, this other part, but the king's like, you have to tell me what those words, what did that mean? And so Daniel tells him, well, it means after your kingdom is, taken down, okay, you're going to end up, for 7 sons. So like, I'm thinking that's the rotation around the earth 7 times. So, but I mean, it doesn't really say. So it could be 7 weeks, 7 days, 7 years. And he says during that time, he's going to be, the king is going to be, he doesn't say why. He just says he's going to be down on all fours in the grass, eating the grass just like the livestock. And that's what his future holds. So basically he's telling him he's going to go mad and start acting like an actual beast, like an animal. So clearly this is a message from God that's like trying to more than likely break his pride and get him to be more in line with God, and to have believe in like something other than himself, because he's very grandiose. He has a huge ego. He is dismissive of other people. He definitely has mood swings like crazy. He's very dominant, almost well, I mean, like some of the qualities he has, I mean, like pretty much most of the kings had them, but not maybe Solomon and Daniel, but they had other problems. Anyway, so the king says, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to change my ways and consider Yahweh. But as time passes and he's busy with his kingdom, he literally forgets. I mean, he doesn't forget. It's just like, every day brings more problems and things that have to be done. So it's like it's not like a pressing need. He doesn't feel like it has to be addressed right now. Meanwhile, God's really had enough about him. He's really at it with his attitude. The main thing about his attitude is that he is just completely inflexible. He's just self-absorbed, and it's like it's his way. He refuses to see any other way. He's very like fixated on making a good impression on others, impressing others. He's not worried really about his people in his kingdom, like whether they have food to eat, or things are fair to them, or they have work. I mean, like, he's just not, that's not where his focus is. His focus is on his amazing, he has these incredible gardens that he had made for his wife. I mean, he's just like a very luxuriant type. He's very into like the high life, and like being seen as somebody who's able to have the best at all times. So he just disregards the dream. I mean, he just sort of lets it slip away, as we all get busy with stuff and don't tend to things, but this is kind of important. So, and what ends up happening is prophecy comes true, and one of the enemies that he has, they come and he gets killed. He doesn't get killed. I mean, the kingdom gets taken over. He ends up, just like it says, kind of going, I don't know, they don't have like a name for it, but he loses his reason, he loses his faculties, and he ends up, I think it's for 7 years, truly living like a beast and naked and eating grass and acting with the other animals just as they are. So it turns out that entire thing did come true. I did have the name of, I might have to put it on my website, the name of the, there's actually a disease, there's a name for everything. There actually is a disease that has been named where somebody might think they are a beast or an animal and live like one, like just like what happens to him. So, but it's like, I guess a medical diagnosis, but I don't know. I have to look at it again, like what time period it was, like, is it relevant today or not? I don't know. But, yeah, that's what he has. So, the different kinds of narcissists that he could possibly have been. And narcissist is used in the Bible. I mean, I don't use that term, but it's more like, pride, arrogance. It's used a lot with the Pharisees. Like they are, they go give dramatic prayers, in their fanciest clothes, and they say these very elaborate, loud prayers because they want to be heard worshiping God. But when it comes to like actually doing anything for the people or being even seen with poor people, they don't do anything like that. And so Jesus almost had like certain ways that he would deal with people who were so full of pride, like they only really want to be recognized by man. They don't really care about humbling themselves before God. Like that's not anything that they're interested in or concerned themselves with. And Jesus's stance on all of it was basically, if you come in contact with people of this nature, is to, separate yourself and try to not be influenced by them, so that your faith or your heart might be turned to the way they think. So, but it is the different types of narcissists that it could possibly be. There's covert narcissists, which I think gets really mixed up with, there's one called, is it the neglected narcissist? Something like that, where it's like, they're either more secretive than the traditional narcissist. The traditional narcissist is basically like, really, the main thing with narcissism is this sort of grandiosity. Like they always think they're better than everybody else. They always have to be putting someone down. The number one thing is control. They have to have control over other people, to sort of feed this. They usually covering up some sort of weaker sense of self or fragile ego. And so that's why they're so hell-bent on getting publicly stroked, and like complimented, and they need to be well liked because they're trying to sort of use that energy, or the compliment is like something that will both bolster them, because they don't have like their foundation is faulty. Like they're building a personality or a persona on sort of a fractured foundation, because they don't have a sense of self. Like they don't, a lot of times they'll take on, they'll take on the characteristic. Narcissists at the beginning stages can be much like avoidance, or much like even psychopaths, where it's like they almost like mimic or mirror or take on the qualities of the people that they're trying to persuade to be enthralled by them. So it's like these people think that they have, I mean, like they're always considered the people who have these disorders, or usually if someone asks, what are they like? Besides saying they're mean or they're, very, very uppity, or they, they're just think all that about themselves. Like they're very like self-centered. The number one thing people say is that, that they're, almost like have like, very a charisma, a very powerful charisma that sort of takes over, and sort of, it's almost like the person they're with at first, or the people they're trying to impress, are like almost in a fog at the beginning. They have these ability to sort of cast almost like a, I won't say spell, but like they're very they're considered, they usually are not deeply emotional. They usually don't have, they have a very low empathy, and I think that's more like a biological thing, but could be some nurture stuff. And so they are seen, since they're not sort of verbally expressive of sort of nurturing characteristics, or they're seen as almost charismatic but aloof. Like they're, it's like they're there and impressing you, but then they're also pulling back also at all the right moments. So it's like they have a weird push-pull, and they're usually complimented for being always having a very calm demeanor. Like they seem very organized. They seem very like unbothered by emotions. But the trick is, especially with covert narcissists, is when they're finally in a private space, that's when they just implode. And a lot of times they're like, don't have a handle on their emotions at all. It's just, they have a handle on controlling their public image, which is number one rule of narcissism, is to how you're seen by the public, your reputation, like how others would see you, is bar none the most important thing. And many times they have, narcissists will have this, but it's like psychopaths certainly won't, a sort of deep shame or low self-image and it's like they're trying to hide that, or like they weren't always the way they are now. It's almost like they built this sort of persona up to be somebody that they would idolize. So, and usually like with sociopaths, I'll go over that in another video, but they're always like, they're externally created really by the environment. They're most likely from homes where there was often a narcissistic parent, or severe neglect, severe abuse, no sort of emotional closeness, no intimacy really. And so, and oftentimes a very critical, or somebody, just on them all the time about being perfect or being, not good enough. And so it's like, that's how some of that is formed. But like with psychopaths, like they're literally, it has to do with their genetics. It has to do, like, they've kind of got it down to a certain DNA strain that, and they have studied their brains after they've died. And there's parts of their brains, like you have amygdala, which is the part of your brain that is very emotional. Like, they don't, it's smaller than it's supposed to be. And there's areas in their frontal cortex, this is not right. There's just, like, you can tell by the structure, like, they literally don't, like, psychopaths do not have any empathy, in terms of they don't, not only do they not have empathy, but they don't feel shame and guilt. Now, narcissists will feel, like, they'll have the feeling, but they'll suppress it, because they're very good at compartmentalizing. But they do have the capacity. They have low empathy, but they do not have no empathy. So, other narcissist type, well, the malignant narcissist, which I think King Ahab and Jezebel could definitely be malignant narcissists, but they're like the hardest kind to deal with. That would be narcissism sort of taken to a new level, where it's like, not only do they do things to dominate other people in like certain manners. There's a whole like formula for it. There's like, it's called like the 3Ds or the 4Ds or something. I'll go over it in another one, but it's like, not only do they do that, but then they take it one step further in that they actually are sadistic. So they honestly, like, pick on people, or sort of mentally torture people, or coerce them into situations that are demeaning on purpose, because it's more than they want to one up them, or they want to be controlling of them, or they want to be better than them, or making a false competition. It's more than that. It's like they actually enjoy inflicting pain and then watching it. It's almost like a video game to them. So that's why psychopaths are the most scariest. And also, you have the evidence of it's actually just, they literally don't have the connections in their brain to have a normal array of feelings. And luckily, they're only about 1.5% of the population, but all psychopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists at all are psychopaths. I mean, that's like rare. So they just get mistakenly all mixed together, because people don't know what the terms mean. And the other one, we did traditional, covert, malignant. I don't know what the other one is. There can be up to 8 of them but I'm not. I mean, I don't believe there's 8. I think it's just like there's these core, like maybe 4 categories. But with sociopaths, it's usually their environment, like how they were raised. Psychopaths, it's more like their biology, their genetic disposition. So that's kind of what a lot of times people think narcissism comes from. It's like a kind of a combination of both those things. But with sociopaths, they make really poor decisions. They're usually very sloppy with their disorder. Like they're the people who like suddenly decide to go rob a 7-Eleven and haven't even had a plan, or they always usually get caught because they don't cover up their evidence. I mean, they're just like really bad at a psychopath will sit back and plan things long in advance. Oh, he's a one malignant narcissist. He's gonna hurt people. But sociopath, they don't have any. I think of them as like when I did jail library, in terms of like, I remember asking one of the counselors there, I was like, well, what's the number one thing that you think why this place is so full? And they would always say, it's because they literally refuse or are unable to think ahead. It's like they're only in the present tense. They're only in, how can I feel better right this minute? And it's like they're not thinking of consequences. It's like they don't have, it's almost like they don't have that follow through. And of course, he also said because of, they don't learn like a sort of a moral code growing up, so that they don't adhere to it. And a lot of people who have been abused are going off the model of, well, if I got totally jacked over, I didn't even have a chance to even become a person before I was, brutalized. I'm going to then, everything's going to be transactional. I'm going to see the world as owing me. And that means whoever I come in contact with, it's fair game. And that is classic, what is his name? Machiavellian, yeah. Classic Machiavellian is like basically like the law rules. We don't have to follow those, because in Machiavellian's a very sort of like higher echelon of income. It was a nobleman who came up with that. And it has more to do with maybe sort of competing career-wise, or it's a different sort of group of people than like maybe say the categories I'm talking about. And Machiavellian's very planned ahead, almost like a chess game. They're actually scary. But the dark triad would be if you had Machiavellian traits, narcissism traits, and psychopathy. You have all three. So, I mean, psychopaths are like amazing at sort of mimicking. Like they are incredible at controlling themselves. Like they can actually, like if a police car comes up behind them, it's like they don't even get like that racing heart, or even if they have like a dead body in the back, like they're not worried. They don't have the same kind of nervous system responses that we might have with an automatic nervous system or sympathetic. They don't have the same kind of emotional, I don't want to say maturity, but they don't have the bandwidth to have these thoughts and feelings. So they are able to pass lie detector tests. They're like one of the only group of people able to pass lie detector tests, because they literally, what I'm saying is like, the usual, like the tests are based on like how you respond physically, emotionally, how they can read your face, or like, if you're lying, you might, look, I don't know, what do they say? They blink too much, or they look to the side, or they do something. But it's like a psychopath doesn't have any of those problems. Like their heart's not going to race. They're not going to get sweaty. They're not going to have any of those symptoms, because they literally are not wired to. So, crazy. All right. Okay, so this video, I guess, was on King Nebuchadnezzar. And I'll do another one on the two women, Jezebel and Delilah. And then, I don't know, I'll throw Saul in there somewhere. But I've done so much on Saul. Okay.